All right, Andy, we are live. Um, are you like me? Are you kind of glad that we're kind of in the post webinar sort of event world where I feel like for a long time it was like 45 minutes of like dense slide lecture,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like not conversational, and quite frankly it wasn't that interesting. And if you're going to do that in a virtual format today, like I got three screens here, like I'm not going to pay attention if you're just going to like drone on to me. So I think this format's better.
Yeah, I think you were a little bit early to that. I think there's something inherently boring about slideware because it's linear and everyone knows it's linear. And
Yeah.
so you're halfway to just having it be a video.
Well, and one of the things I love, so for those of you joining us, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Matt Heinz, founder, president of Heinz Marketing here. Very excited to have Andy Crestodina, co-founder of Orbit Media. We're going to be talking about high-performance websites and a lot of sort of tactics, strategies, best practices for getting into that. And what I mean, I love about these new formats is that, we can make it interactive, right? Like, Michelle, who runs our marketing, can engage with an audience on our behalf. I can bring her comments up on screen. If you are watching this program live, we're super excited that you are here. And excited to be able to sort of have this live conversation. If you happen to be watching this on demand, we're going to make this as interactive as we can. Love that Michelle's already asking where people are coming from. This, by the way, for those of you that do events, this is one of my favorite tactics at the beginning of an event like this, just to get people in the habit of actually using the chat. It's a simple answer. Everyone's got a good, there's no wrong answer to this. And look at this, all of the volume coming in already. We also, real quick before we got in, we had a friendly wager where we forgot to actually put anything up as collateral about like what we would actually get in terms of attendance for this. So we had about 400 people registered for this event today. We were trying to get the over under on how many would actually show up, because I think, as many of you know, like you do an event, it used to be back in the old webinar days, Andy, you'd get like half. Maybe
Right.
the people would register. The 50% was the number. I think you were at 30%. I was at 20%, only because I'm thinking like it's August, it's summer, it's fleeting. We are already trending towards above your number. So just a full inside baseball, we had about 400 people register for this. Looks like we're coming in on about 100 people joining us live, which is amazing. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I take that commitment of your time very seriously. So we're going to get into it here today. Real quick, for those of you that don't know Andy, I'd love, Andy, for you to just introduce yourself and some of your credentials and background. And if you haven't read the book, if you're here and you haven't read the book Content Chemistry, don't do it now. But in 55 minutes, go to Amazon and get a copy of the book. Highly, highly recommended. When I think web best practices, when I think content, SEO, combination of all that above, like Andy's at the top of the list. So excited to have you here. And maybe just quick, for those that you don't, you introduce for yourself.
Sure. Grew up here in the Midwest. I see lots of Midwest representation, which is great. I finished college at a time when the internet was pretty new. I had a job that was kind of boring, quit that job to do interactive stuff. So I've been building websites and doing analytics work and SEO since 2000 and 2001. This company we formed in April of 2001. So I'm kind of the guy who never pivoted. I'm still doing SEO, analytics, visitor psychology, conversion and website visitor optimization. But then in the last, since 2007, I've been doing the content marketing, content strategy stuff and demand gen. So it's really been a long journey of speaking and writing and teaching. I teach at Northwestern University and a few other places here and there. I give a lot of presentations. I write a lot of content. I do a lot of videos. And more recently, it's been about AI and GA4, which is fun. But the focus of my career has really been on website planning and search and conversion optimization, which is a big part of our topic today.
Love it. Well, and thank you, everyone, for just as you were introducing yourself, just scrolling through where everyone's from. We have a very international audience here, Andy. We've got a lot of folks from across the U.S., but we also have well represented the U.K., Poland, Malaysia, Kazakhstan.
Wow.
We've got people, Germany. We've got people all over the globe. So thank you all so much. Some of you, it might be the middle of the night, and thank you for joining us for this. We want to get right into it. I think, so part of the precipice, or part of the impetus of doing this is a couple things. One, we just redid our website. In full disclosure, we hired Orbit Media to rebuild our website, and needed to have a fresh look, needed to sort of rethink who we were engaging, what the journey was they were engaging with as well. But then we have sort of this existential question, right? At the Forrester B2B Summit this spring, the Forrester CEO got up on stage and said, well, we think websites are going away. We think AI is going to make it so that websites are obsolete. Maybe that was meant to be sort of a talking point or a hot take for us to discuss. I don't see websites going away anytime soon. I see their interaction and relationship with AI evolving for sure. But I think let's talk about, maybe start with sort of the digital landscape, the landscape of the digital tools that exist of content, right? AI as a fundamental level is not necessarily a competitor to websites, I think, as much as like just where are people getting their text and what text is indexed and available and sorted for folks. But given that you spend all day long thinking about this, what are your thoughts on the landscape today we see in B2B and from a digital standpoint, and why does that matter to how we think about websites now?
Well, AI will definitely change the nature of the internet and how people get information. There's a lot of things that people search for because they want an answer. Those visitors have information intent. But they didn't really have visit website intent. So I agree with the Gartner statement to some extent, because when people want information and answers and advice and tips and how to do something, they didn't necessarily want to visit a website and accept cookies and dismiss a pop-up and deny notifications and then get retargeted for 6 months. So for information intent queries, I predict there will be less traffic to websites, unless those are queries for which there's a very long, detailed answer, like how to set up GA4, like complicated things. Short answer stuff, just like the featured snippet has been, chipping away at website traffic for years, AI is going to do that. For commercial intent queries, I need help with, sales and marketing alignment. I need a service provider. I need a helper. I need a company, an agency, a partner. Those queries still have visit website intent, because the person is trying to select from many options. It's a high consideration decision. They got more than one decision maker, high stakes. So it really just depends on what you're talking about in terms of the intent of the visit. And a lot of us really didn't want to go to a website to get that guacamole recipe. You just wanted the recipe. So right. AI will take that out of the equation, and website owners will get less traffic from those queries going forward.
Well, and the goal is not necessarily traffic, right? Like, and I think depending on what your business, so when we saw this is years ago, I published a bacon recipe on our website, right? And it was part of something that when I would go on stage, I'd offer people some follow-up information to sort of get some, so as a call to action. It ended up being like our best traffic driver by far, right? And so like when we redid our website, we took that link down, because it actually was slowing down our website and driving the kind of traffic that people looking for a bacon recipe are not always, in the market for B2B consulting, right? And so like thinking about the type of traffic you want,
right?
And thinking about like the goal still is not traffic. The goal is in many cases education. The goal is intent. The goal is making a connection between your brand and someone to be part of a buying journey. And that buying journey website is a component of that. But I think this is helping us rethink what those stages are and what that means moving forward.
Yeah, Matt, I love your brain on this, because you're a bottom line guy. You're a connect all the dots guy. You think to the very end. And so that was not a conversation we had to have. You and your team understood that from the beginning. Meaningful traffic, qualified visitors, people who take action and become leads. Right. All the top of funnel marketers need your help at Heinz, because they don't connect it all the way down to the actual like CRM data.
So, I wanted to start this with the foundation of the digital landscape and talk about the impact I think AI is going to have moving forward. I don't think websites are going away. I think they're going to continue to be a foundational element for all businesses, and in particular B2B businesses. But the things we prioritize on those websites, if we're going to step back and say, how are we going to rethink the experience? How are we going to rethink the objectives for a website? I start to think about, more traffic, but I think about buying journeys. I think about brand versus demand. I think about where do I capture? What do I gate versus ungate? All these questions that sort of lead to like, what does an optimized website look like today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that we started with intent, because it is, after all about the visitor. It's all about the prospect and the buyer and what they need. So if you take a minute to think about people who need your help, search for what? Okay, that's SEO, and that's fine, and that works well. We get a visitor, someone lands. Next question. That person really has what information needs. It aligns with the key phrase a second ago, but now we're going to think about their information needs. Now imagine your best sales call. Imagine your top rep having a great call that they wish in hindsight they'd recorded. the best sales pages emulate a sales conversation by doing what? Answering these people's questions, addressing that visitor's objections, and then adding evidence to support those assertions. Answer evidence, call to action. This is basically why websites do and don't work after they've got a visitor, right? From the conversion perspective. So it's really all about them. We can do two things. We can address, give them the information they need and they came for, but also pros like Matt and lots of, people who've done this a while and been on the front lines know, you also can answer the infrequently asked questions to exceed their expectations about how good you are at this or how useful the engagement would be. So really that is sort of what it comes down to, right? We're going to add clarity and reduce uncertainty by answering questions frequently and infrequently asked, addressing objections. If you don't address objections, guys, we're not going to convert these visitors. And then adding evidence to support those assertions, right? Testimonials, case studies, anything that, data, whatever it takes to make them believe that you are, in fact, a good provider in this category. That's the job.
It is the job. And I think that how you go about that and how you sequence that is really important. I think for a lot of folks that are in B2B, where this is not a transactional sale. I think expecting someone to come to your website, to be educated, to trust you, to believe in you, and then to download something all in one visit sounds like a very tall order. And yet you look at a lot of websites and that's how they're built, right? They're built as if this is a consumer direct response mechanism. I think sometimes 3 steps are faster than 1 to get to where you want to go. You have to have a little bit of patience and discipline and sort of put yourself in the seat of a busy B2B buyer. Say like, I want to learn. I want to have access to information. I want to self-educate. And then if I do all those things and have access to all that, I might start to trust the provider of that information. Mm-hmm. And so, if your website is part of a broader digital landscape of driving by someone's house at 35 miles an hour and trying to throw something in a mailbox, you're going to miss most of the time, first of all. And second of all, the first time they pick up something from you, they're probably not going to hand over their credit card, right? Like you're just trying to get in the house and not in the recycle bin on the way into the house. And so like, how do you think about the website experience? I mean, there's all the things that drive traffic in, and we're going to get into sort of some of the great work you guys do around sort of keyword analysis and thinking about how AI is driving different intent signals into the website. But the experience people have on the website where you're not like, hey, click here, hey, buy now, but respecting the buyer's position. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is where the collaboration with us was great because you're very strong at this. The middle of funnel intent, the middle of funnel conversions. So web design, it's UX, right? You're building this thing and it's got, it's a combination of a container and content, right? It's partly design, it's partly words and pictures. But in the end, the whole thing has to come together in a way that supports the goals of the business and the overlap between those and the visitor. So when it comes to the blog UX and landing page UX, what is that page's job? That visitor had information intent, but that page still has a job to do for the brand, which is to bring that visitor closer to the brand, build trust, build memorability by leveraging the content to the max. So you end up with calls to action that, did I just lose my internet connection? Matt, are you still there?
I can still hear you.
Good. I lost it this morning. It freaked me out. The conversion rate from visitor to subscriber is a huge part of the game. So it's about the calls to action and about the UX of those landing pages. And I've got the data, we could show it if you want, but the one of the ways we measure our success is in the conversion rate lift from visitor to subscriber, because we know that these people are going to be in the middle of your funnel for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, let's do a little show and tell, because I think we've gotten through also just a full disclosure. So Orbit built and relaunched our website a few weeks ago. When you relaunch a website, that is not the end of the journey. It's sort of, I think of it kind of as sort of the middle, maybe the middle forward even, to think about once it's launched, there's optimization, there's continued refinement, like there's ongoing sort of continued work into it. But would love to have you do a little show and tell. And then sort of for John, Michelle, Ellie, and others, I'm going to keep track of some of the questions coming up here, and we'll make sure we get back to those too.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen and we'll just put it right here and tell me if you can see that.
Got it.
Great. The before and after is always dramatic, so it's kind of fun just to show this. You can see every web page has a visual hierarchy, by the way, and whether it was deliberate or not, Every element on every web page has a certain amount of visual prominence, and the job of the web design company is to build a visual hierarchy that guides the eye through a messaging priority. The most important things in what order, as you just said, Matt. It's like how to flow that. So here's the before, here's the after. You can see how these are using different tactics to guide the eye. Here, the white space makes the logo more prominent. There's just a lot of, it's kind of obvious actually, but look down here.
Well, I think it's obvious to you, but like you go back and forth, like the before, I mean, it's a very busy page. Now you're cramming a lot of stuff, quote unquote, above the fold.
Yep.
You go to the next page, and I love it. I think the design is nice and clean. I've had some people say, wow, that's a lot of space just for an image. It's a lot of just white space. But to me, that's the point. Like I want if I'm not going to get 4 messages to get into someone's head, I think 1 is what I might have a chance for, and then you got to think harder about what that 1 is.
Yeah, and that's actually completely open for discussion with designers. I could also argue that it would be better to tighten this up, but we know this is a high intent visitor who's not making a quick decision, so this person's likely to scroll.
So real quick on that point, just talk about what that means, right? So I think that we think about like, oh, the website's got to communicate a lot of things. A lot of your web traffic is coming from specific queries on search and then going to specific pages in the site.
That's right.
This is the homepage. This is someone that either typed in HeinzMarketing.com or was intent. Like, talk about the intent and therefore the strategy for what you do on a homepage.
Yeah, this is really important. The homepages are the most difficult pages to build, because they are the pages with the most diverse sources of traffic, and the page for which you know the least about your visitor.
Yeah.
So it has to talk to everybody. Now, the good news is that most visitors to homepages go immediately to the main navigation and decide what to do based on that. We want the visitor to click. The job of the homepage is to get the visitor off of the homepage. Put simply, right? You're trying to get them to click. Every click is segmentation, and now you have a new URL where you can speak to them more specifically. That's the job, right? Move them forward, guide them deeper into the site. So what we've got here, and I've got another slide that shows it. This is what happens when you move your mouse over the most prominent navigation item, therefore the most prominent item on the page, which is the B2B Demand Gen top level link, which shows a mega menu. The mega menu is what's going to guide them more directly into the pages that are more specific to them. We've done this with other companies. We've got other clients, mutual clients. Like here's one for another company where people are building out, because they work so well, big mega menus that have things like calls to action and other options. It has its own visual hierarchy. It's got its own little labels. So this is a way just to kind of quickly get them to dig down deeper into the website. And that's where the big difference is. One of the big differences before and after on this project, because the old version of the Heinz Marketing website sort of just had one page for what we do that had a little bit about everything. Mm-hmm. That is not an ideal UX, and it's very bad for SEO. What we should have on our sites is a page per service, a page per topic, a page per person, a page per industry, because then 2 things happen. 1, that page has a chance of ranking more qualified visitors, and 2, that page will speak to those visitors more specifically with more detail. So it's good. It's better cheese and better mousetrap, and you can see it in the data. So here is the data before and after. This is just one page, right? Look at the what we do page. Had some visitors. This site's new, so I don't have lots of data on it yet. The data will keep getting better and better because this is recent pre-post launch period. But post launch, you can see, more total traffic, and I can see the relative popularity of these pages. Each of these pages has a chance to rank. Each of these pages has its own engagement metrics. Some are lower than others. How could I improve that page? Or what's this page doing better than the other pages could? And on the cheese side, go look at the performance of any of these URLs. They can rank. They are relevant. They are keyword focused. That's what SEO is about. It's about making a detailed page on a single topic. You can't make a page that's a little bit about everything. That's the opposite of SEO. SEO is about making one page that's a great page on the topic and going deep. So here's sales cycle optimization. This is a new URL, right? So this is just the beginning. The positions are not high yet, but I'm starting to get data just from this one report, this one screenshot. It's starting to tell me what's working here, what's working well. Does this page talk about strategy? What process? What is the focus of the page? Could I sharpen that focus? And in the end, I can kind of optimize for those keywords, refine the keyword targeting, Here I'm using a different tool. I'm using Moz to check to see, okay, the page authority is only at 28 right now. Difficulty is 41 for sales cycle optimization. We might choose to retarget or to adjust the keyword targeting, or just to build better internal links. Matt, I'm kind of excited about this. The very next step is really exciting. Michelle and I are already setting something up. I've got my new benchmarks. How well did that page perform against which criteria? Traffic and conversions. Should I keep that keyword targeting or adjust? Can I find internal linking opportunities? Can I find opportunities to link from other websites? Heinz is really fun because you guys have a wealth of content out there. Do you have any other pages that mention the sales cycle? Yes, you have 232 of them. Hundreds of internal linking opportunities. Now that I know and have confirmed for myself the keyword targeting of that service page, that service specific URL, now I can go back and work on the internal linkings or adjust the keyword targeting or improve the relevance of that page. This is one of our best opportunities that comes right after the page is live, but it's only possible if you have a site structure. Information architecture is the fancy term that breaks it down such that we know, this is working well, this is not working well. When it was all one big page, you don't really get any data.
Yeah, go back. I want to stop because we got some questions I want to get to here as we go. Can you go back to the where you showed sort of the one page versus that? Yeah, right there.
Yep.
So, it's funny. You look at this and you think SEO. I look at this and I think intent, right?
Yep.
And so there's a difference between like, how do I get the right traffic to my website based on what people are looking at? And then I now just with the after, I can segment what people are looking at. Like how long were they on that page? How long did they click to other more info? And so I've got a better sense for what information they might be interested in next. This isn't about like, hey, I'm spying on you. I'm going to say, I saw you on my pricing page. Do you want to buy?
Yep.
But it's about providing more relevant, personalized experiences based on what someone is interested in, what similar people have wanted to see after that as well. So to me, there's an SEO impact of this as well as how do I create better experiences for folks? Okay, so you got a lot more to share. We got a lot more to cover here. I want to get to a couple good questions that people have here. So John has a question about balancing content and call to action. How much information is too much to get to click? I think there's another question that Jonathan had a little later around sort of having prominent calls to action above the fold. Maybe even go back to sort of the homepage.
Sure.
Because like the homepage does not have like our new homepage. Like the only real call to action is that get the let's connect up in the top. Like we don't have a bunch of download this, download that, get a free consultation here. That's on purpose. So talk a little bit about content and call to action, how you think about that balance.
Yeah, you'll have a good perspective on this too, but I'll jump in and just say the prevailing wisdom is increasing conversion opportunities increases conversions. That's why there's so many pop-ups, and that's why there's drift, and that's why there's all these tools now that add conversion opportunities. But really, if you watch screen recordings, which I've spent hundreds of hours of my life watching screen recordings, put Hotjar on a website and watch the recordings, there's no confusion about where to convert. So it is a bit overstated, like this page is 1,000 pixels tall, so make sure there's a call to action halfway down. If it's an information intent visitor and they're just on a blog post or they're on a landing page and like they're not really, they're kind of here, but they don't really care that much, right? It might make a difference. But on a sales page that's designed to sell, where the person has like it's a complex buying decision with multiple decision makers, long sales cycle, I don't think that's your most reliable win is by adding more calls to action. Yes, put one on the bottom of every page, right? It should be right above the footer. That's if they made it all the way down, just suggest they get in touch, start a conversation. What really makes a difference is whether or not that page addressed their specific needs. Did it answer their questions? Did they believe what you said? So if a page really, if you go back and look at your own browsing history and ask why you didn't convert on those websites, you'll probably conclude like there's things I didn't see. There's research about this. The Nielsen Norman Group finds findability is the number one reason why visitors why website visits are unsuccessful. So bottom line, the job of the page is to align with their psychology and satisfy their information needs, answer their questions in a roughly prioritized order, address their objections and evidence. I think answers and evidence are more important than calls to action. Everyone knows where to connect, right? It's right there. But what separates good sites from bad sites is in the conversion copywriting.
Do we so and also back to Jonathan's question about like the calls to action above the fold. I when I think above the fold, first of all, I'm a journalism major from back in the day. My very first job was writing for a newspaper. There was no online; it was all print, right? So above the fold literally means like above the fold of the newspaper. For those of you young here, there used to be a thing where they would take what's on the internet and they would publish it on paper every morning, and sometimes a little kid would throw it at your house. But like so. Is above for websites today, is above the fold still relevant?
There is. So again, going back to like a tool like Hotjar, which shows beautiful colored screen, the scroll heat maps, you'll see the average scroll depth on every page. So yes, it is a thing, and it does make a difference. But it is your very first point on this webinar, on our conversation here, Matt, was that these are not transactional consumers. We're B2B marketers promoting high consideration services and products. Therefore, those are, above the fold is not our key consideration. What has to happen above the fold is you have to answer one question, and it's not the CTA question. It's, am I in the right place? 100% of website visits begin with this one question: web page loads, eyeball sees pixels. The brain starts interacting with this interface. The first question of every visitor to every web page is, am I in the right place? So what does this company do? Pipeline. They're accelerating pipeline, right? This company knows your funnel. This is a marketing company that's going to grow your business through optimizing funnel and B2B demand gen. There's zero confusion why you're here. You know that you're in the right place. This is a company that's going to grow your B2B pipeline. So that's the main job. If it fails to do that, then there's higher risk the visitor will hit the back button.
Well, super interesting questions coming through here. So I'm trying to keep track of them all. I think the Nagesha has a really good question about sort of the balance between text and visuals. And you mentioned sort of looking at this, like you've got a very dominant visual here. I kind of like that. I like the white space. I like the focus on the message here, but how do you think about visuals versus text?
Well, every scroll depth. I used to think about it every web page. Every web page is a visual hierarchy. In fact, every scroll depth on every web page is a visual hierarchy. So if we did an eye tracking study, and I've got one, it's actually like a bar that you connect to the bottom of your screen, kind of an expensive toy. It's fun. It's not a toy, it's a tool. But so if we did a visual hierarchy here, you'd see people really are much more focused on their information needs, what they care about, the problem in their life, than about pretty pictures. So yes, there's a visual hierarchy. And yes, the image is at the top of the visual hierarchy. Probably an eye tracking study here would show logo, image, look at the main navigation and header. It's going to be those four things, probably in that order or close to it. So the image isn't really, it doesn't hurt. It sometimes helps, but it's not as important as things like navigation labels and headers.
Okay. I want to let you get back to some of your slides. Peter, Kathy, Zach, Vina, I've got your questions kind of queued up here. Vina, I think it was PageMaker. Like when I was in high school, edited our high school paper, and I think we had the old Macs. I mean, this is still forward technology versus what they used to do. But we were using PageMaker to lay everything out. And yeah.
I remember those
these days. All right. Yeah, we'll let you keep going.
That's where I started. I'm from that same generation. It was, back when I went to college, the computers were in a building, like it was the computer center. We went to the lab. Spell check was a program you ran when you were done writing your paper. Okay. Yeah. So I don't have that much visuals. This is way better as a conversation than just a deck. But I want to show, just for everyone's reference, how success is measured, not just on, I talked about the cheese, and I'm talking about the mousetrap. Does it say to track qualified visitors? Does it indicate relevance? Does it rank for real phrases that my audience really uses? But then what happens next? The UX and conversion factors look like this. This is what a screenshot of Google Analytics 4 looks like, where you're measuring the pre-post lift in conversions. Set the date range, right? I don't have a ton of data yet here, but working on it. We'll have more data soon. So I took the screenshot, whatever, last week or something. You could see the comparison. And then if Google Analytics 4 is set up properly, you've got your conversions, which you can choose from these drop downs. And I'm on the traffic acquisition report, so I can see the variance by traffic source. But this is the number. This is where you look to see if it worked or not. Did the conversion rates go up? Now I can look at this for different conversions. I've got newsletter subscribers here. I've got form submissions here. This is a big lift from a low baseline, but for form submissions, quick caveat, and Matt knows this very well, not all form submissions are equal, and the internet generates a ton of noise. So you're going to you have to actually look in your CRM to see, like, are these MQLs? But bottom line, people like us, who I can't see the quality of your leads, what am I using as my proxy for growth for Heinz, having been hired to help Heinz grow? It's stuff like this. I'm looking at the date range pre-post. That could be a new website launch or just a website change to a web page. Change your call to action. Change your call to action. Did it work? That's where you find out, right? Here's burn this into your brain. Best practices are good hypotheses. That's all. There's nothing more to it. You have to test it to see if it works for you. The goal as a marketer is not to use best practices. The goal as a marketer is to grow a business. So this is where you look to see if that change made a difference. What's above the fold? What's a navigation label? What's is it called too many fields on your, all these are just called best practices. But if it worked, it should look like this: session conversion rate, which it reduces traffic as a factor, right? This is just the conversion rate, the percentage of people. And look at the variance by traffic source. Direct is always going to be, for a group like Heinz, is always going to be one of the most powerful sources, because brand reputation, it's been in the market. This is, it's your 10th visit to this website. You've been reading them for years. Direct should look high if you've been good at the middle of funnel marketing.
Ricky, Lori, Kathy, Steve, Stephanie, Kevin, I love those of you nerding out on like old school newspaper. I also remember the smell of the pasting machine and the waxer. That's all for the kids out there. That's a whole nother webinar we can get into. Lots of good questions coming in. A couple of them specific to mobile, right? And so like that nav you showed that kind of breaks down like all those different areas. Like on a smartphone, you're obviously not going to have that same opportunity. So talk about how you think about visual hierarchy for mobile and how you make it so that both sites work.
Sure. So just to see if I had it up lately, am I on the Heinz account? This is Google Analytics 4. So speaking of no slides, we're just going live here. It's slowly loading. It should show us an account name here at the top in a second. So what this is going to do for us, this is my site. I'll do it for my site. It doesn't matter. It's the same for every site. Reports, user, I think it's under tech overview. Oh, tech details. And then set the primary dimension to be a device category. Great. So this is showing you what percentage of your visitors are on mobile. I think their device screen resolution will show you the most popular screen resolutions. If you get down to the most popular for mobile, or if whatever the most popular is, now go back to your website, right click, inspect, and then up here you can choose mobile or desktop.
Wow.
You can choose to see, how big, how about iPhone, how does it look on an iPhone 12? So if your analytics is telling you that's your most popular screen size, go into inspect element, change your screen size to look at that, and look at that site. That's what you're working on. Otherwise, you're looking at the wrong website. Now we're all B2B here. So, by the way, very clever. Do you see the hamburger menu kind of has that element referencing the logo? I love that. Yeah, it's very thoughtful, right?
Well, even the Heinz logo, that squiggle. When I first showed that to my mom, she said, "Why did you choose like a little ketchup squiggle for your logo?" And I tried to describe the funnel concept, and it was it all works.
Yeah, she's not your B2B buyer, probably, right?
No.
That's an important point. Talking to close friends and family, caution, caveat, right? They're not your audience. Getting input, we meet people who are like, "Oh yeah, this looks great, but I got to check with my chiropractor to see if this is a good web design." Like, no, you don't. That's not your audience. Here's where you measure success. So anyway, yes. So I'm under reports, tech details, and I changed the primary dimension from device category to screen resolution. Right clicked on the website, and then go to inspect, and then from that drop down I can choose a resolution that's that size, or just type in the numbers right here, and then you can start to get a sense for, like, how well does that work? How do the mobile menus look? Is there a hierarchy there? Look, I've got your primary navigation, your secondary navigation. This one you can see it expands. I've got sub navigation from here. It's elegant. It is. And that's really one of the How many things? Many things that a website has to do well. Attract visitors, that's search. Convert visitors, that's conversion optimization. Align with the brand. Load quickly. Be accessible for people with disabilities or anyone. Be mobile friendly. Conform to privacy laws, because that's a thing now. Make results easy to measure. Make the site easy to update. Integrate with all your other systems. There are at least 10 key criteria for success for building a website. And yet people keep handing these products off to their branding firm. It's like, that's probably, they probably don't have like strong analytics in house, or, how do they get, what do they know about integrating with Marketo or your other systems? There are many things that every site has to do well. So,
and balancing, and I think understanding what the objective is and knowing what people are going to respond to. I think I like this question from Stephanie, which gets into sort of these, I hear this all the time. I'm sure you hear it all the time, right? Like, someone says, I think that page is I want that page to be prettier, right? Or a design firm doing something that may win a nice award for design, but isn't going to help you buy a beer, right? And then in this question here, like, how do you convince a CEO or a leader that you don't need more stuff on the website, where like, it doesn't say this, it doesn't say this, it doesn't immediately get people to want a demo. Like, I need people to get offered a demo, should be like very prominent. How do you have that conversation directly and
good question,
persuasively, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, it's this is going back to this, going back to analytics. This might work. This does not always work, but opinion versus opinion. The highest paid person's opinion wins. They call it the Hippo. So if you go to meetings without data, the conversation's all going to be just about points of view and perspective and personal preference. But if you bring data to your meeting and you say, here's my benchmark, my goal is to change that number from X to Y. Here are my 3 hypotheses or plans, that the actions I want to take to move that number. Moving that number affects the bottom line in these ways. Do I have your approval to proceed and test these options? So I did a couple of things. One, I started with data. That's going to help keep the conversation productive. 2, I said, I'm going to try things. This is not set in stone, right? That CEO might have a background in print or PageMaker, or like we were just talking to Quark, Illustrator. They might think that these things are done. It's not done. We're going to have to keep improving it, right? So that changing the psychology from like the finality, or it's going to be finished. I'm just going to keep improving this forever, right? Digital ink is never dry. This is just my next best idea. I'm going to take these actions in this order. And then they should have lots of confidence right then, right? Because you're a data-driven decision maker, right? You're not sure of your own recommendations, but you're going to find out. You're simply asking for approval. Everything they're going to see on the website, they're going to know, like, that's just something we're trying right now. It's not like the end all be all. So it kind of both lowers the commitment level, and it increases the right kind of expectation, which is in the end ROI.
All right, so we got a whole bunch of questions I'm going to try to continue to get to here, and a lot of just really appreciate everyone's questions. You talked a lot about sort of best practices so far. Let's get to some dumpster fires, some cautionary tales. What are some absolute no's for landing pages, some absolute no's for home pages that turn people away from website?
Yeah, I think that there's a category of visuals that are just basically eye candy and fancy visuals for their own sake, which always worry me. Because none of us, if you watch your own behavior, none of us really go to websites to see how pretty they are or how fancy they are. Mm-hmm. There's a minimum level of beauty and visual appeal that every website has to meet. But past that, you don't need to have fancy visuals. Now, I do have some fancy visuals on my website, but they're there to tell a story. Here's the before your site. Now it's like this SVG animation. Here's the process that we're going to use, the inputs that go into it. And then finally, like, here's the after. So yes, that's pretty. I'm a web design company, so I have to have stuff like that. But we need to kind of prioritize the information and also the humanity. Look, there's people here. The idea is to differentiate your brand. One of the easiest ways to differentiate is just show yourselves. Mm-hmm. Put yourself out there, right? The way that Matt does every day. So yes, there are some visuals are meaningful, some visuals are not. So ask yourself how meaningful those visuals are and if they help tell the story. A lot of other things. I mean, I think clarity is more important than cleverness. Some people want just homepage headlines that no one understands. They don't pass the backyard barbecue test. Try this. If you meet someone and they ask you what you do, just read your homepage headline and see if they understand. If they don't understand, like as if you're at a backyard barbecue and they're like, they're confused, then you did not pass your headline, your homepage H1 tag did not pass the backyard barbecue test. So again,
well, and the caveat I would give that you gave earlier is that people at your backyard barbecue had better be your target customers, right? Like, because I'll have people ask me what I do, and I'll use my typical, like, hey, we do revenue marketing, we help drive predictable pipeline in complex sales situations. My target audience understands that, right? Like, my mom doesn't, but I'm not marketing to my mom. A few more interesting questions here. I love this one from Kathy. A lot of companies will build custom homepages for first-time visitors, repeat visitors. They'll have custom pages based on industry that you're attracting. Are there pros and cons of that, or are there cautionary tales from an SEO perspective in having that personalized web experience?
Well, I mean, if they're separate URLs that load separately in browsers, and if it's not one page that's sort of, trying to adjust itself based on some cookies the visitor has or doesn't have, I generally recommend having sites that are more robust with more pages that can help you in sales, right? I could send this URL to a prospect if I wanted to kind of help myself tell a story. So generally speaking, yes, I recommend having lots of pages that speak specifically to different groups and help them segment themselves onto those pages with clear descriptive navigation labels. But to make an SEO, it's called cloaking, and it's not a good thing to do, to just have all the content of the homepage change depending on that person, based on the user agent, it's called, or the cookies. So no, build wide and deep sitemaps, but don't do anything fancy with your programming.
So this question from Jessica, it's germane to us as well. Like, we use Path Factory for a lot of content hosting. Companies use Uberflip. I mean, they may be domains on your site. Like, we use like discover.heinzmarketing.com. What are the best practices for including that on the website? Is that GA4 compliant? How should people think about those third-party platforms?
Yeah, all the videos from Google say, don't worry about it. We can crawl it just the same. Subdomains are fine. And in my experience, really, subdomains are fine. I don't see any big SEO disadvantage. Sure, it's not, there's a best practice where if you can keep your URL simple and you wouldn't use a subdomain if you had the choice, but how big of a disadvantage, it's still unknown. I don't think that it's anywhere near as important a search ranking factor as the quality of the content.
Right.
So can they work with GA4? Of course. Just check with, confirm, send them your GTM container or whatever, make sure, go into your analytics and from the pages and screens, add a host name. This is how to see that traffic. Host name, so you can see if there's a subdomain, it will show up in here. Not hard to report on at all. So I don't think that, measurement or search are the main criteria for selecting, kind of a content platform.
Cool. All right, good question here from Gonzalo. Thank you. What is your take on video use on home pages? If yes, and above the fold, I would imagine part of your answer here is if videos are searchable and if there's transcripts of videos. But curious your take on this.
Yeah, videos are mostly for conversion instead of search. The videos that support search are videos that are usually content marketing stuff, and it's hosted at YouTube and it ranks in YouTube and can also show up in Google. I love that strategy, but I would never use YouTube as the hosting and streaming player for a homepage, because the homepage's job is different. The videos there is about conversion. It's about, again, answering questions, addressing objections, being human, adding evidence. Video testimonials are very powerful. So I love video for conversion on homepages and on service pages. I would use a pro player for that, like Vimeo or something similar. You can customize it. It looks more integrated. They can't click and sneak off over to YouTube where they're going to see tons of ads and distractions.
Yeah.
So it's a conversion thing.
Speaking of human, I remember sort of the early days of sort of SEO when you'd have these keyword stuffing articles that might have been technically perfect for SEO, but literally unreadable by humans, right? And so thankfully Google is getting better at recognizing real language, but talk about sort of where we are now in terms of balancing SEO with just good writing.
Yeah, those were bad times, and I was there for them. And I did SEO back in those days, and it was weird. So a better way to think about SEO now is that we don't really target just a specific key phrase. We target a topic. Target the topic, not just the key phrase. To target the topic, you need to incorporate all of the closely related phrases and cover all the subtopics and answer all the related questions. That's what Google wants, a comprehensive page that talks about all the closely related things. So to do that, really, it's again about empathy, and it aligns beautifully with conversion, because what did I say about a second ago? The job of these pages is to emulate a sales conversation, answer questions, address objections. That's for conversion. In search, the job of the page is to indicate relevance. How does it do that? It touches on the related questions and the related subtopic. It's basically the same thing. So we need to be comprehensive and detailed and go deeper into these topics. So modern day SEO is really, one thing that doesn't work is shorties, not very effective, right? Hard both for search and conversion. I've never seen any studies that show higher conversion rates from shorter pages. Lots of studies show search performance is better from longer pages. So yes, so modern SEO is to have a page per topic or a page per service, and then on that page to go deep into that topic or deep into that type of service by covering all the related subtopics. That's semantic SEO, and it's what Google's trying to do is just align with the intent of the searcher.
I love this question from Paul. On a landing page, include the nav or no? Like my uninformed, unintelligent opinion has always been to not include a nav because you want them focused on whatever the call to action is. But maybe that's not best practice anymore.
It's an awesome question, and there's data about this. If there was a metric, they would call it the attention ratio. This is from Ollie Gardner back in the old days of Unbounds. The attention ratio is the number of things that they can click on divided by the number of things you want them to click on. So the closer you get the attention ratio to 1, 1 to 1 is like everything I can click on here is the desired action. And the fewer distractions, the more likely the visitor will stay in that tight focused funnel and take the action. Having said that, that's a best practice, but best practices are good hypotheses and they should be tested. But I strongly believe that it makes sense if you just look at the traffic source. So what were they clicking on? A paid ad or paid social, paid search, whatever or an email. That intent is best served by just staying focused on that thing. So it's natural to me that the conversion rates would be higher, assuming the traffic source was very specific and the intent is high. If you just remove all the other navigable items and just stay focused on the conversion.
Got a few more minutes here before we're going to try to wrap up. I'm going to try to get to a few more good questions here. Jake has a question that I think he specifically frames around the nonprofits. But a lot of companies have a lot of things they're selling, a lot of different services and programs. You go to that homepage, you got white space, you got a message. Like, how do you think about the hierarchy of all the things you're selling? And maybe this is covered in the nav and sort of getting to those subpages, but curious, how do you help direct clients on this point?
Yeah, if you think about every click on every website as being sort of like an online poll, you can go back and look at your data. Here, I'll show you mine. We'll just do this one for fun. I'm going to go through this. You can watch this replay, but how do I know what people want to do on this website, right? What are the visitors' needs? What are they interested in? Come in here, explore, path exploration. The next step sounds weird, but we're going to click start over. Then I'm going to make the page path the starting point, and I'm going to choose the home page. This now shows me what people are clicking on. This is insight into what people want from me, the relative popularity of everything that was clicked. Of course, it's partly driven by the visual prominence of each of those elements, but you can use data to get an idea for how to prioritize the content on a page or how to prioritize the structure of a navigation. So there's things that you'll just know that you want to promote that are just the brand, and this is what you're working on this quarter, and this is our total focus. So we got this download, it's prominent, that's great. But also just look to see what's working. Not weird at all. Very common to see big prominent buttons that never get clicked, or to see tiny little links that people are clicking all the time. Data-driven empathy, that's the game. Path exploration for navigation summary, measure the performance of your CTAs, measure the performance of your navigation, and then make the decision. You're likely to get better results by checking this report first.
Love it. Let's see here. So Nazi asked a question, recording. Yeah, we're definitely recording this webinar, so you'll be able to get this afterward. I like this question on pop-up banners. Full disclosure, previous version of our website had a pop-up asking people to sign up for a newsletter. It was very productive, but it was also very dumb in that it didn't know whether you were already on the newsletter list. So every several weeks it would pop up again for you. So I think generally it's not great technology, not great an experience. Curious if it's actually a really poor SEO idea. Just love to get your thoughts on that.
I don't know of any SEO implications. I have my own personal preference, which I should probably refrain from saying, because that's not, again, it's just there's best practices. It's just something that you should test, but I don't think it has anything to do with search. If anything, if it has a search implication, it sounds like this. Visitors who come and see that are more likely to hit the back button quickly. Google's, if they came from search and they hit the back button quickly, Google sees that as a short click or pogo sticking. That's a negative user interaction signal, which can affect your search rankings going forward. So it's really just, did your sort of bounce rates or engagement rates in GA4 go up for that visitor when they came from search? I could show you that report. It just takes a minute. But if it affects anything, it's probably mobile visitors. So just try it, measure it, see if it's working, and then decide.
Mm-hmm. All right. Tactical question here from Zach. If you have a resource block that displays related articles, does that count for internal links?
You mean partway down on a homepage to have a link that goes to a resource?
I would imagine that. I mean, Zach, feel free to sort of redirect the question. Is it either that or at the end of a blog post to have sort of, associated links underneath there? Some of those are.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. But what I was recommending earlier was pretty strategic. I was linking from a blog post to service pages that are starting to rank. So internal linking can be, it's just normal. It goes everywhere. But as a general rule, consider this. Every new blog post, link from it to a service page. Every new blog post, link to it from an old blog post, passing some authority internally through your website. Those are two types of links that a lot of content marketers still miss. I personally don't even do them myself every time. But it's not just about internal linking. It's about linking to pages that sort of need that authority boost. Specifically, the commercial intent pages that rank for the money phrases.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we're going to end with this question, which I think is a kind of a good one to round up on. Thank you to everyone for all your amazing questions and interactions. This has been awesome. So Kira from upstate New York, the emotional side of making these changes. And it's interesting that I like this one because, Heinz Marketing, like, it's a business. We're trying to drive traffic, but it's also my brand, right? I mean, so founders, even if they don't have their name on the company, sometimes have an attachment to the company. There's an emotional side of the status quo, what you've gotten used to with a previous website. I mean, I'm sure you face this all the time as a service provider. Curious how you think about it.
It is emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? This is part of the backlash against AI is like, hey, isn't the world for people? Like, let's be humans here. Every project has an emotional component to it when these things get presented. And so we just have to recognize that. And it's the problem is not emotion, but the problem is bias and cognitive bias. Are you making decisions based on the best available data? Yeah, love it. Feel passionate about it. Care deeply about the results, about the audience, about the brand message, about who you are and your passions. We're a B Corp. There's things that I care about a lot. I will never give up on. But I also have to be careful. Like, if I'm making decisions just based on, what I like personally, my preference. There's a difference between emotion and preference. So I could remember, digital ink is never dry. Everything is testable. In the end, our job is to get results. It's not to preserve something precious that we love at the expense of our, the security for our teams. So yes, I would just just know yourself, pick your battles, and just accept that there's a part of this process that you need to love and be passionate about, or else you won't approve it and it'll never go live and there'll be no results anyway.
Yeah. Andy, this has been fantastic. Thank you for your partnership on our website. Just love what we've been able to do with you guys, and know that the journey is not over. We'll continue to work on this. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We were both, by the way, wrong. I haven't done the math on it, but you expected about 99 people here. I said I was around 74. I think we had around 136 at our peak. So
wow,
in terms of registration to attendees these days, I was pretty impressed with that. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We will definitely have a recording of this available for you on demand, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, Matt.